Hey everybody out there in YouTube land. I was thinking about how to open this video, and I realized the gaming industry and the Trump administration actually have a lot in common. Both treat rules like suggestions, both have a weird obsession with holding information from you, and both would sell their own grandmother if they thought it would boost quarterly earnings or poll numbers. Today, we're doing something a little different. We're going to look at two stories that seem unrelated on the surface, but the absolute bloodbath happening in the gaming industry right now, and the Trump administration's ongoing war against transparency, court orders, basic competence, brain fart. And we're going to do this with numbers, because opinions are cheap, data is expensive, which coincidentally is also EA's new DLC pricing strategy. Let's start with the part that actually might get me demonetized. Corporate greed. This will be part one, the gaming industry, record profits and record layoffs. Now, gaming industry is... let's start with a number that should make you physically uncomfortable. 45,000. That's how many jobs have been erased from the video gaming industry between 2022 and mid-2025. And in 2026, it's not getting better. In the first half of this year alone, we're already tracking roughly 14,000 more layoffs across over 100 separate events. Epic Games, yes, Fortnite Epic, the company that literally prints money, cut over 1,000 people in March of 2026. That's 23% of their workforce. Microsoft, after spending $68.7 billion on Activision, like a drunk guy at an auction, turned around and cut roughly 9,000 jobs in 2025. Then came back in 2026, July of this year, and sliced another roughly 4,800 while selling off studios like Compulsion Games, Double Fine, Ninja Theory, and Undead Labs. Sony wrote down $765 million on their Bungie purchase. Yeah, that Bungie. The one responsible for Destiny. Then they laid off hundreds more and watched their live service game Marathon flop so hard it left a crater. Ubisoft? Ubisoft is currently restructuring so hard they make a Jenga tower look stable. They closed studios in Winnipeg and Belgrade, cut hundreds of jobs, and when Barcelona workers tried to push back, Ubisoft said, "Cool, we'll just reassign your Rainbow Six Siege team and cut 28% of you anyway." Those workers are now on strike. But here's the joke, and I mean this in the darkest possible way. The Game Developers Conference in 2026 survey found that 1 in 3 American developers has been laid off in the past 2 years. 1 in 3. That's not a layoff wave. That's not even a layoff tsunami. That's the industry walking into your house, taking your job, and leaving a post-it note that says, Synergy. Record revenue, record layoffs. Now, if you're waiting for the part where I say, well, the industry is struggling, so cuts make sense, hold on to that thought, then throw it in the garbage. Global gaming revenue is sitting near high records. The money has never been better, the executives have never been richer, and the workers have never been more disposable. It's like owning a restaurant that they pack every night, firing all the chefs, and then wondering why the food got worse. Oh wait, no, they don't wonder. They just raise prices and add kitchen access fee. Which brings us to consolidation, and it's a feeding frenzy. While studios are shedding workers like a dog sheds fur in the summer, the ownership of gaming is being sucked up by the biggest players in history. Electronic Arts, makers of The Sims, Battlefield, and approximately 47 versions of FIFA, is being taken private in a $55 billion deal led by Saudi Arabia's Public Investment Fund. Yeah, the same Saudi Arabia that... Okay, look. I'm not saying anything. I'm just saying the U.S. Congress sent a letter to the UFC expressing concern for this deal. Netflix, not to be outdone in the who can spend the most imaginary money contest, is trying to buy Warner Brothers for $82.7 billion. That would hand them Rocksteady, which is Batman Arkham, NetherRealm, Mortal Kombat, Avalanche, Hogwarts Legacy, and TT Games is responsible for the Lego games. And here's the beautiful part. Netflix has basically said the game studios are a minor part of their rationale. They just want the IP. The actual developers, they'll figure it out. Probably with fewer employees and more efficiency. It's a hostile takeover with extra steps. And a complimentary severance package. And it's an AI excuse. Now, no conversation about 2026 corporate greed would be complete without mentioning the robot in the room. Generative AI. 36% of the industry professionals now use AI tools in their work. But here's the fun part. 52% of developers believe AI is actively hurting the industry. That's up from 30% the year before. 64% of artists, 63% of designers, and 59% of programmers hold unfavorable views of AI. The workers hate it, but the executives love it, and the layoffs just keep rolling alongside the AI push, which is totally a coincidence, just like it's a coincidence that your ex started dating someone new the day after the mutual breakup. Playtika, the mobile games company, literally cited a desire to utilize more AI-dependent resources and rely less on sheer headcount, especially when they cut 500 jobs in January of this year. They didn't even try to hide it either. It's like a Bond villain explaining his entire plan before the laser starts. At least have some theater, guys. But here's where I get a little optimistic because the workers are done taking shit. 82% of US developers now support unionization. 82%! You can't get 82% of gamers to agree on whether Dark Souls is hard. But developers agree they need collective bargaining. The Ubisoft Barcelona strike is demanding a 5-year ban on collective layoffs and protection for affected roles. And unionization is accelerating, fastest in Europe, where workers actually have labor laws that function like labor laws instead of decorative suggestions. So to summarize part 1, the gaming industry is making more than ever. Firing even more people than ever, selling itself to sovereign wealth funds and streaming services, and using AI as an excuse du jour for treating human beings like line items. And if that sounds familiar, if that sounds like a system where power consolidates at the top, accountability evaporates, and the people doing the actual work get squeezed until there's nothing left, buckle up, because we're just getting started. Excuse me. You know what's fascinating? The same playbook, different arena. In gaming, it's release half a game, sell the rest as DLC. Fired the devs, blame AI, cash the check. In politics, it's promise transparency, hide the documents, defy the courts, and blame the judges. Both rely on the same assumption that you, the public, won't notice, that you'll get distracted by the next shiny thing, that outrage has a half-life of a TikTok trend, but the numbers are catching up to both of them. Let's talk about Trump's administration's 2026 greatest hits. Which brings us to part 2. The Trump administration's court orders are for the other people. Let's start with the Jeffrey Epstein files, because this story has everything. Missing documents, incompetent redactions, a journalist suing the government, and an acting attorney general who appears to think transparency is some type of window dressing. The Justice Department has collected approximately 6 million pages of documents related to Jeffrey Epstein. They've released about half, and the half they did release, it gets better, because in December of 2025, they dropped the first batch. But here's the thing, the redaction technique was so bad that people literally could copy and paste the blacked out text into another application and read it. That's not a redaction, that's a participation trophy for trying. That's like putting a do not enter sign on a door that has no walls around it. The Wall Street Journal found at least 43 victims' full names were exposed in the files, including more than 24 who were minors at the time of their abuse. Some names appeared over 100 times. Home addresses were visible in keyword searches. Attorneys who had literally provided DOJ with the list of 350 victims to protect said the department failed to perform a basic keyword search to verify its redactions. A basic keyword search. I can search my email for tax documents and find the PDF I lost back in 2019, but the Department of Justice can't search for victim names, names before publishing documents about international sex trafficking ring? What? Oh, and in January 2026, they published dozens of unredacted nude images of young women and possibly teenagers. They only took them down after the New York Times started calling them. So to recap, they hid perpetrators' names, they exposed the victims, they published explicit images of minors, and when survivors' attorneys called it the single most egregious violation of victim privacy in one day in United States history, the DOJ said the errors affected about 0.001% of materials, which is a weird defense. Your Honor, I only leaked some of the classified documents. He's focused on the percentage. And here, right here, there are at least 12 court orders violated in the first 6 months of 2025. But the Epstein mess isn't even the worst part. It's the pattern. In the first 6 months of the administration alone, courts found the Trump administration violated court orders in at least 12 separate cases. 12! That's not an accident. That's the strategy. They've deported people without due process. They've withheld congressionally appropriated funds. They've wrongfully terminated federal employees. And when judges pushed back, administration officials, including the vice president, called for judges to be removed from office. The Department of Justice literally sued every single judge on the District Court of Maryland for imposing a temporary freeze on the deportations. Let me say that again. The DOJ, the people who were supposed to enforce the law, sued an entire court for doing its job. That's not legal strategy. That's a tantrum with a filing fee. Let's go and talk about Abrego Garcia. There's Kilmore Abrego Garcia, wrongly deported in March of 2025 to El Salvador's notorious Z-Cop prison, a supermax built for terrorists, despite having legal protection against removal to El Salvador. The career lawyer who admitted it was a mistake, he was put on administrative leave by then Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche, and ultimately removed him from the department. A federal judge in Maryland found that the department engaged in a willful and bad faith refusal to comply with its discovery obligation, and when Abrego Garcia was finally returned to the U.S., Blanche's DOJ charged him with an unrelated crime in Tennessee. But that Tennessee judge looked at the evidence and found that Blanche started the investigation to implicit Abrego, and that absent Blanche's tainted investigation, the department would not have sought an indictment against Abrego. That's not law enforcement, that's revenge with a badge. So just to recap everything, the pattern is the same. Whether you're looking at gaming or government, consolidate power at the top, remove accountability, treat the people doing the actual work or the people seeking justice as disposable. And when anyone pushes back, attack the mechanism of pushback. In gaming, it's AI's going to replace you. In politics, it's rogue judges who fail to live up to their obligations of impartiality. Both systems rely on the same lie, that the rules don't apply to the people who write them. That a $55 billion buyout or a 6 million page document dump is just business. That a court is a suggestion and workers' livelihood is a spreadsheet cell. The Protect Democracy Project, which tracks this stuff, noted that this kind of court defiance is a common part of the authoritarian playbook in countries that have suffered from democratic backsliding, specifically naming Turkey, Poland, Hungary, and Russia. Who would have guessed? When your democracy is being compared to Hungary's, that's not a compliment. That's a warning label. So here's where I land on all of this. The gaming industry and the Trump administration aren't exactly the same thing. One makes entertainment products, the other runs a country, but they share a disease. It's a disease of unchecked power, of believing that growth, whether it's market share or executive authority, justifies any cost, of looking at a human being and seeing a resource to be optimized or a problem to be disappeared. 45,000 game developers lost their jobs while revenue hit record highs. 12 court orders violated in 6 months while the DOJ claims it's protecting victims. The numbers don't lie, folks. The people in charge do. And the only thing that stops this, the only thing, is when enough people look at the data, get angry, and refuse to look away, whether that's unionizing your studio or voting, or just not letting them change the subject. Because they're gonna try. They'll start a new culture war. They'll release another batch of redacted documents and hope you get bored before you go and read them. Don't get bored. Get pissed. Then get organized. And maybe, I don't know, pirate the DLC. It's probably overpriced anyway. Thank you all for watching. Like and subscribe if you still have a job. Comment below what's your favorite example of corporate or political incompetence, because there's plenty to choose from. And I'll see you in the next one. Ciao for now.
Mega is extremely retarded.